everybody. This is Dishin It, but it's a special episode of Dishin It.
A special episode?
Yeah.
What's so special about it? What game are we playing?
We're not playing any game.
All right, have a good one, everybody.
So this is going to be the first and probably for a while, unless if like you and Josh or Sean and Mike or like whatever combination want to do something like this, is probably going to be the only thing that's going to be listed under podcasts for a while.
Right.
But so here's the deal. We are literally going to sit here and dish it with each other, and you're invited to our conversation.
Yes.
Rob and I are vocal, massive fans of an RPG series called Suikoden.
Yes.
And we have been for a while. And excitedly, we've had to wait 2 years for this, I feel like. On March 6th, 2025, a remaster is being released of the first two games. And so I said, hey, we have an opening spot in Dishin It. What if you and I talked specifically about... Because I don't know about you, Rob. Ever since that first trailer 2 years ago, I have not looked anything up on this remaster.
Nope, absolutely not.
You too?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so same here. So we're going in blind. People who decide to sit and watch or listen to this, you guys probably know more about this than we do at this time. So we might have some predictions or requests or what have you that you already know if it's going to happen or not. So we want to get to the point where we talk about what we hope we might see in Suikoden 1 and 2's remaster. So first thing we want to do is tell you, why are we such big fans? Like, how did this come up? And it started between the two of us. It started with me first. I took a train trip with my mother, the Pixel Pack and Mama, from Chicago to Dallas, hung out with some family, including, I've mentioned her before, my cousin Carrie, who both of my cousins down there played video games. Carrie is the one who got me to play more than just sports games or just the big stuff like Mario and Zelda. She introduced me to Dragon Warrior. She introduced me to Final Fantasy. I became in large part an RPG player because of her influence. So I go down there and she tells me, I have to show you a game. And the game was Suikoden 1. And she even gave me a warning before she showed it. She said, now it's on the PlayStation 1, but it's not polygons, it's sprites. So just be ready for that. But she's like, this is something really special. And she started it, and you're in that first spot. You're in the Barbarossa's throne room area. And I remember thinking, it looked all right, but it didn't look impressive to me at that moment. And so she goes and she's going through the story and what have you. And I just wasn't really buying it until the first battle. And I said, whoa, there's 6 people. Okay, there's a short, medium, long range system. And it just flowed really nicely. And she kind of like sped through a whole bunch of it. And she starts telling me other things that are going to happen. That there's 108 characters to recruit. And you have a castle. And the castle is going to slowly build itself out as you recruit people. And she showed me the first duel fight on there. And I thought that was extremely cool. And then she told me about there's a war battle thing as well that happens. And she couldn't show me all of it. We weren't like going to sit there for 40 hours, but she gave it a lot of hype for me. And I just felt like I had to buy this game and really see it for myself. The cover of this game is something that is hilarious to look at right now. What Rob and I are looking at is because if it weren't for finding those paint buckets in this game, I would have no idea what this is like, because my copy of the game is still the disc in a plastic sleeve. That's how I bought it.
Nice.
So here's the thing, Rob. I told you I had a question. I know that this is one of the few times that I introduced you to something great.
Yes.
I don't remember how that happened though, and how you went about playing it and experiencing it yourself.
So, so there was an instance because I never really dabbled in RPGs. That because Brian, unlike me, was an only child. I had a younger sister, so I couldn't designate that time to playing video games. And it wasn't until later when started hanging out, and then I had mentioned to you that I've tried some Final Fantasies and never really got into them.
Right.
But what I was getting into at the time was Fire Emblem.
Oh, right. Yes, I remember you talking about that.
Because if I'm not mistaken, there was a Fire Emblem out for GBA around, and then I showed you Fire Emblem, and I was like, yeah, I'm playing this, pretty cool. And then you said, okay, well, I know you're not super big into RPGs, but the story on this is cool, and it has that rock paper scissors battle system.
Right.
And I was like, okay, cool. And so I started playing the first one, and I was kind of like, oh, okay. This looks okay. This looks okay. And it wasn't until it was the sprites blended with the polygonal magic
Right.
that really started to get me. And then the other part was because you had told me, like, hey, just to let you know that there's a lot of characters in this game. I said, okay, that's fine. And then I asked you about it. I said, okay, well, what do you mean a lot of characters? She said, well, there's a lot of characters in this game. You can make a bunch of different people in your party. But what you neglected to tell me was
I know exactly what you're going to say.
It was not getting the characters that's the point, because you could miss people, you could kill people.
Right.
And you wouldn't end up with the full roster.
Right.
The moment I realized this, when this game was something super special, was Taiho and Yamku.
Yes.
That
you
is
were always a fan
the
of them.
moment I realized this game was awesome. Because in order to get them, you had to beat them at that stupid dice game.
Chicharoran.
Yes. Yeah, Chicharrones.
Very good, sir.
And that is the moment where I was like, you know what? That I might be interested in this. And I remember having long conversations, because I was calling you on the phone that was attached to the wall,
Right.
about where I was in the game. And I remember distinctly, or I can't remember the guy's name, but he had like this pink fluffy hat, or maybe that was his hair.
General Milicic or Milich.
That's it. Yep. And I was like, oh yeah, I killed him. And you went, what?
That's right. I remember this conversation.
And I said, oh yeah, I killed him. He's like, oh, you can recruit him, right? No. Yeah, if you don't kill him, you can recruit him, and he can be part of your. So I had to go back a save, do that whole thing over again, so I don't kill him and recruit him. And then it just kept getting to, like, the story of the game was really cool. The magic system, which I started realizing that, if it has a cool magic system, then hell yeah, this is awesome.
Yep.
And the other part of the game that got me was when, God, I can't remember your friend's name.
Are you talking about Ted?
Ted. Okay. I almost called him Teddy, and I didn't know why. What happened to Ted and how your Soul Eater gets stronger.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, oh, your soul eater gets stronger by devouring those close to you.
Right.
And from that moment on, I was like, okay, let's go. And I beat the game. And that and what was really funny was I remember you telling me like, hey, just a heads up, here's the Game Shark cheats to give you money, because in order to beat the game the right way,
Yep.
you have to let Pon live
Yep.
when he fights your dad. And it takes so long.
Yep.
But no, you introduced me to this based on Fire Emblem.
Yeah. Okay.
And then from Fire Emblem, it was like, oh, well, it's unique characters, and this happens, and this happens. And then it started to seem interesting. And you were like, well, here, borrow it and go ahead and play it.
Yep.
And so I did. And ever since then, I've been a fan of 1 and 2 especially.
Right. So yeah, we'll get into that as we're talking some more about these two. So this is a lot of talk about Suikoden 1. I want to build off of 2 things you said. For one, killing Milich on accident is a mistake that I also made, but it wasn't him. I believe it was something like it's the first general you encounter. He's the one where his castle is in the diversified zone of the Scarlet Moon Empire, where there's the elves in their village, the dwarves in theirs, and the kobolds in theirs. And I killed him, not realizing he could be somebody in our team, because what I was thinking was, this bastard tried to do racial genocide. Like, how could he possibly be a hero? And it's not until afterwards that you learn about the Black Rune. And then I'm like, oh no, I think I chose wrong.
Oh, because I have the generals here. George Prime, Kasim Hazil.
That's not him.
Kilauer Shulin, Quanda Rousman,
that's it.
and then Milish Oppenheimer and Tio McDull.
Yep, that's right. Oh, wait, they didn't mention one of them.
What?
They didn't mention Sonya Shulin. Or did you say that one?
Kilauer Shulin?
Oh, does she not count because she's an admiral, not a general? I always thought she counted.
Oh, here we go. Although no replacement was named, Kilauer Shulin's position was replaced with that of her daughter.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so also too, about Rob having killed Milich, I remember feeling extremely bad that you had to go redo that part, because that was a long segment to go through his region.
It was.
Yeah, and it not only was it a long segment, it includes a part where you had to fight random encounters and hope they dropped a pearl. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Or whatever the jewel was. So yeah, definitely felt bad about that when that had to happen for you. But it's a really enjoyable game, and it's the only game I can think of, RPG-wise at least, where I've played it so many times that I can beat it pretty quickly without rushing through it, just because I just know where everything is now.
Right.
It's just in my head so much. So yeah, that came out in 1995, but of course this was still back in the days when we didn't get everything right away from Japan. There was always like a year or two we had to wait. So then the sequel was made. And I should say, when it comes to the first game, interestingly, I think this matters because of what happens with this series. It was critically well received, but it seemed like, as far as players were concerned, kind of unknown.
Right.
So the sequel comes out in 98, but for the States, it doesn't come out until the end of 99. And what's kind of important about that to me is I had only had a PlayStation for not even a year at that point. So like I was jam-packing my PlayStation 1 days in a very short amount of time to play some really big titles. Suikoden 2 is a direct sequel, takes place a certain number of years later, just a couple, not major, in a neighboring section from the game world that you take before. You got some return characters. I remember it felt to me like this was more heavily marketed, but not by the marketing department. This felt like when games journalists who did previews and reviews saw this sequel, it felt like they were doing the work. All of a sudden, they wanted people to know this game was being made. And I'm glad they did because, you know, I found out about it and was super excited about it. I feel like this may be the only time I anticipated a game to be released and had my expectations completely blown away. This still, to me, is one of the most gorgeous looking games.
Oh, definitely.
And I can't really imagine how it's going to look
right
in this remaster.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts specifically?
Oh, I was just going to say this is one of those definitely that definitely marketably approves on the first game.
Oh, yes.
Leaps and bounds.
Yes,
leaps
agreed.
and bounds. And then you mentioned like, yeah, it's a sequel and there's some returning characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much of a sequel that you get the main character from the first game.
Yes. And as long as you did the right thing, so
right.
people should understand, you had to play the first game, get the good ending, which means you had all 108 stars, and then hang on to that save on your memory card. I still have memory cards with that first save of mine on there.
Right. I'm surprised you honestly haven't bought a memory card dumper at this point.
Yeah, right. No kidding.
You could just throw them on.
So then you had to load game instead of start a new game
right.
and load your Suikoden 1 save just so it can acknowledge, okay.
You found them like in some reeds at a lakeside or something like that.
Yeah, they're in a hidden away little fishing village.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely agreed. The writing in Suikoden 1 was good, but maybe predictable in a lot of places. Not in all of them, but a lot of them. Suikoden 2, the writing was tighter, the art was better, the music I felt like was more interesting, which is saying something because Suikoden 1's music was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It just, like you said, everything about this game felt better.
Mm-hmm.
And it was longer, there was more to it. I think I can say that this might be my all-time favorite RPG.
Yeah. Because one thing that blew me away, and I want to know how you felt about it.
Okay.
So when you let me borrow this and I booted this up and I saw the option for the thing called buddy attacks.
Yes.
And when I first hit those, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome.
And so people should know, okay, we're talking about all these different characters. Not all of them, not all 108 can be in your party. About 40 to 50 are people who can be in your traveling party.
Right.
Certain combinations of them unlock special group attacks, and they're usually, you know, spectacular looking, a good option depending upon what you're fighting, that sort of thing.
Right. Oh, I mean, the first one you get with
Yep.
you and Nanami.
Yep.
That family one,
yeah.
Oh, that's it, from there on. It's so cool.
Yes.
Like you get Shiro and Kennison.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good. And all the squirrels.
All of the squirrels.
So okay, you know what? Hey, let me explain. Let me explain.
Sure.
Really quick. In this game, there are 5 flying squirrels. Maku Maku, Meku Meku, Miku Miku, Moko Moko, and Muku Muku.
Uh-huh. Not a joke.
Right. You don't get them like regular people. You find the first one by accident,
Yeah,
right?
That's how I did it.
You find him by accident by going around a tree. And then, but you have to go find the rest. And when you find the rest, you get a buddy attack with the flying squirrels where they all swoosh down and bonk the enemies on the head with their bodies and do a victory pose afterwards.
Yep.
but they are such a pain to find.
Yes.
Because the thing is, like, so it's one of those RPG tropes, I guess, to where it's talk to everyone.
Yep.
And you can find out hints of where they are, but they are such a pain to get, except for the first one, which is Muku Muku. You get them from accidentally walking behind a tree.
Right. And you said trope. I do have to reference something about trope aesthetic here. There is a trope that so far in the games that I have recorded and finished the list on, which at the point that at the time that we're recording this and that it'll be released, I'll have started the 4th game episodes, but I literally just finished the 10th one. And there are certain tropes that just have not come up for me yet. One of them that has not come up for me is referencing chocobos in Final Fantasy VII and how there was an issue with the translation in that game that kind of makes it confusing to figure out how you get the ultimate gold chocobo. And so the trope is something to the effect of this great thing is next to impossible to find because of translation issues.
Right.
And what's so funny is I never ran into that issue because when I played Final Fantasy VII, we had the internet. We had game FAQs and what have you. For Suikoden 2 with the squirrels, to this day, there is still some very confusing information out there about how to get those squirrels. So much so that I've probably beaten Suikoden 2 like 6 times. It wasn't until the 6th time that I played it in 2021 that I realized I misunderstood it all the time. Even though I'd gotten them before, it was still a mystery.
Right.
And now I know I was overworking trying to get these things. It's way easier than I thought, but it's just how mysterious it is to get them.
Oh, so, okay. You just reminded me of something else. So speaking of overworking to get characters.
Yeah.
Stallion.
Yeah.
So in this game, you had to run away from battle X amount of times in order to recruit this character. Or was that the first one?
No, I believe you're correct. It's this one.
You had to run away for his, because he had the true holy rune.
Yep.
So he was fast.
Right.
You had to run away from battle. The other one, Clive and Elsa.
Yes, Clive and Elsa. Yeah, that's right.
Amazing characters.
Right.
Amazing story. But you had to follow. These games are all about, especially this one, you had to follow sequences to get characters. They weren't just like, what's up, bro? Are you going to go fight evil dragon wizard man too? Looks like I'm joining you. My name's Tyrell and I'm good at pole arms. No, that's not how it works in this one.
Right.
In this one, there's this like assassin romance between Clive and Elsa.
Yep.
That's a constant back and forth. You have a Vicky who poofs in out of nowhere. And it's just like, oh, crap.
Rob likes to do a thing that I find very funny. He will make sentences with improper syntax. And I guess because I'm a reader, I find that funny because I know he's doing it on purpose. I want to clarify. He didn't just do that now. You do have a Vicky. There are more than one in some of the games, and we still don't know her deal.
Right. Right. No, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because was it 3 or 4 where you got young and old Vicky?
That was 3.
3.
Yeah.
You got 2 Vickies.
Right.
And it was like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, you get a Vicky in this one, and it's just it's like, okay, so what does her thing do? Shit. And then
It's true.
like the first moment that happens, you're like, let me try this blink rune out because everyone else is super cool.
Yeah.
Blink. Oh no. All right. I just got whatever dumped on me, or I'm in a random location now.
Yep.
Cool beans.
Yep.
Or you have like Jean that progressively loses clothes and gets younger every single game she's in.
Exactly.
But no, just Brian, just the characters in this game aren't your bog standard. Like,
Right.
I'm the hero. I'm the hero's foil lady who's in trouble all the time. I'm some big gruff guy who doesn't give a goddamn about anybody. And in fact, Brian, the two big gruff guys in this fucking game from the first one are two of the most heartfelt characters
Yes.
you will see in any video game.
Yes.
Flick and Victor are two of the best characters in any video game ever. They're not the main character, but the thing is, like, they're around for the main character.
Right.
They're there in the first one, and they're there in the second one, and then the second one, their story is like even further fleshed out,
Yes.
and they are heartfelt, amazingly written characters in Vic and Flicker.
Excuse me?
Flick and Victor. And Flick and Victor. And it's just like Victor, one of the most gruff looking characters, is just
the big bear man.
yeah, and everything about him and the way he's written, and Flick and the way he's written, they're incredible.
And like, as enthusiastic as Rob is sounding now, I have to reinforce it even more. The whole reason why Trope Aesthetic exists is because I found the work that the people did who made that list incredible, and I loved reading through it every couple of years on my own because of the work they put into it. But every time I would do it, I kept finding myself saying, a lot of these don't fit with the Suikoden games. These are a ton of characters that do seem really original, and even the ones that aren't, there is so much charm to these.
Right.
There's good humor mixed with what is pretty rough story. Rough in the sense of, like, it's hard to take when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't remember. I never remember that little girl's name.
Palika?
Palika.
Okay.
Her story.
Yes.
Her story. And it happens almost right away.
It's very early in the game.
Yeah. And it happens almost right away.
Yeah.
And then she goes from the happy-go-lucky girl to silent.
Yes. A literal walking shell of herself.
It's just mute.
Yep.
And like seeing that character art go from happy Palika to dead eyes.
Yep.
It's huge. It's so powerful. Actually, Brian, if you happen to scroll up on that on that game art, there she is right there next to Victor.
Let me do that here. Yep, that is her right there,
Right
holding
there.
a stuffed animal, it
Yep.
looks like.
Yep.
So, yeah, absolutely.
And if you look, speaking of just characters, like if you look at that, you could see it even better from the second one versus the first one. Like, you're not just getting humans.
Right.
And
right.
you're not just getting the typical knights, archers, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Like, there's a dog man and there's a griffin. And there's the circus sisters.
Yep. Eiley and Rena?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then their brother, the strong man.
Oh, I can't remember
It starts
his
with
name.
a B, but I can't remember what it is.
Boga?
Maybe.
Huh.
But that's the thing. Like, you don't get. Oh, they're there. They're there in the background underneath the E.
The flying
Yep,
squirrels.
there they
yes,
are, right there. There's three of them. But then this is the perfect illustration. Like, you also don't just get human characters. Like, there's Shiro,
Yes.
right there. Shiro is Kennison's wolf dog.
Yeah, right.
Wolf,
I think he's supposed to be
because
a wolf.
like he's got the elongated snout and
Yeah.
everything. So wolf, but like you could see that you don't just get human characters. You get other characters, and also you mentioned before that it's a team of 6.
Right.
Well, that griffin right there takes up 2 spots.
Yep. Exactly.
So you also lay out, it's not just 6 dudes in a line, 4 people plus a griffin. The griffin takes up 2 spots.
Something else that I think is really important, because it's hard for this to be done in a game, which is imagining a world that you can live in.
Yes.
And in the case of Suikoden 1, every time I got a batch of recruits, I liked to go back to Turan Castle, which is the castle you've built, essentially, we'll say, and seeing, oh, things moved around and what have you, but it was quick and easy to go through. In Suikoden 2, when you wanted to go around your castle and look at the changes, you had to set time aside to do it.
Uh-huh.
It was a large area, a lot of little changes, and it just felt like this is an alive place.
And when you talk about changes, it's not just the castle gets bigger.
Right.
The castle becomes more active.
Yes.
The castle becomes more lived in. The castle becomes more populated.
Yep.
And not just by people roaming the hallways.
Right.
You get weapon stalls, food stalls, armor stalls, a bath. Hey buddy, are you toasty yet?
Gotta get toasty. Yeah, there's a lot we could talk about, especially with Suikoden 1 and 2, but let's go ahead and go to the other four, because here's the thing. Suikoden 2, also critically well received, and it seems like suddenly I heard other gamers being like, oh, I want to play this. But I don't know how well it sold. You would think it sold great, but I don't know that it did. And I question that because we then have to go on to Suikoden 3.
Two things.
Sure.
Before we move on.
Yep.
Before we move on. One, I like Suikoden 2 so much, I have the black sword on my arm.
Oh yeah, so Rob's got the tattoo of the black sword rune, and I have 2 sets of coasters with the rune art on there.
Yeah.
So-
And before we go on to number 3, I just wanted to mention, most of the time at this point in gaming, most of the time, your main character in most games wields a what?
Oh yeah, right. Normally they are a sword wielder.
But the first game, you're a staff.
That's right.
And in the second game, you have Tonfa.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
You have Tonfa. Jowie, the other person in the artwork, has a staff.
He has a staff.
Your sister has a 3-section staff.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I wanted to bring up before we moved on to 3, which are people who wielded swords.
Yes. So, Rob, Suikoden 3, I'm going to say is I don't know if you know this or not, but it is the equivalent of Final Fantasy X to the Final Fantasy series, where there are some really strong divides between the fans of the series. In the case of Final Fantasy, you can find people who love 1 through 9 and toss tactics in there too. Then there's 10, and you've only got people who hate it with a passion.
That's me.
Or think it's one of the best ever. I find myself in a weird place where I do really like it, but I also find there's a lot of flaws that hold it back for me. Suikoden 3, it turns out, is there as well, where there's this massive divide of people who think this is when it went off the rails, and other people are like, no, this was the right next game in the series.
So and one of the biggest problems where I do not like this game,
Okay.
is the choice that it gives you is a false choice, but it tells you it does not put any sort of bearing on that choice. Like
Right.
it doesn't lead you anywhere. It's just like, hey, who do you want to do this?
Right.
And if you pick anyone but Hugo, the game's just screwed. It's not the real story.
Right. And, I can tell you when I played this on my Bonanza, so people should understand, Suikoden 1 and 2 up to this point have followed the 99% of storyline rules for RPGs, which is there's a story. It's a linear story. You're starting at the beginning and you're going to the end. Suikoden 3 took a massive, massive gamble in which they gave you 4 separate stories, each with their own chapter that you can play in any order that you want. They also let you, what Rob's talking about, make a massive choice about who is going to be what they're called the Flame Champion, even though it is extremely clear there's a right answer to that question. They let you go ahead and make a different answer to that question. And it never feels right if you do any of those other choices story-wise. This was something that they made so many changes here. We've talked about the 6-person combat, which is down to 3. It is still a turn-based combat, but there's a hidden movement counter within those battles that doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why. The story structure being changed. The Suikoden games were never really about grinding. This one is specifically focused on grinding. If you don't grind, man, it's just going to be hard to play and beat this game. It also made the huge jump. Like, I can't believe I skipped over this. It's not a sprite-based game. It's a polygon game.
Yeah, and that was the other reason I didn't like it.
Right. And it's on the PlayStation 2, so we're not talking about, like, early era sprites, but at the same time, they gave you a lot of environments that you had 2 categories of environments. One, which is bland, that you're walking back and forth through constantly, or you had some pretty detailed locations, but you were still walking back and forth through them constantly, and they weren't changing. So then I gotta say, like, the mansion area, which was its own chapter, which didn't make sense to me, even though I liked Thomas, the character, just fine, and the people he was trying to start this castle with. It just never made sense to me why they took these challenges with it. What's funny, though, is this is why I go back to my whole question about, I wonder if Suikoden 2 sold well. You would think, of course it did, because look, they made a 3. But it's so different. It makes me feel like some higher up said, well, we'll keep going with this, but we got to make some major changes. In this game, famously, for a little while there, at least in the States, was given a limited release, and it became extremely expensive to buy this game if you weren't lucky like I was, who got it right away when it came out. Like, they didn't anticipate that many sales. So I've beaten this game twice, and the second time around, I will say I liked it more than I did the first time, but I'm still bitter about the changes they made to it.
I was just looking up some artwork, and I forgot how chunky those characters look.
Yes, it almost was like they went with the SD style, but didn't go all the way with it.
Yeah, they looked action figure-y.
Yeah.
And the departure from the sprites kind of made a big impact, and like you were saying, some of the locales just looked bland.
Mm-hmm.
Like the grasslands.
Yes.
So the grasslands always reminded me of like like what your farm would look like on the outside of Harvest Moon.
Yeah, right.
Like, it was just like, oh, well, here's all the uninteresting stuff out here that we don't have to do anything with because the farm's in here.
Yep.
And it's just it was so bland. The color palette was more bland. It going from those incredible sprites to these, and I mean, boring, almost boring characters. Because when I played it, and that's why I stopped. As soon as you told me that I was supposed to pick Hugo, I stopped playing it, deleted my data, never went back.
Right.
Because it's like, what is it? Is it Jetto or Ghetto?
Yeah, Jetto.
Jetto, Hugo, and
Chris Lightfellow.
Okay, I keep wanting to call her Claire Lightfeller.
Lightfeller?
Yeah, Lightfeller. I picked Jetto to be the flame champion, and as soon as you were like, oh no, it was supposed to be Hugo, and I was like, I don't need to play this fucking game anymore because why wouldn't you just make him the flame champion and then make a better story for everyone else?
Yes, right.
Instead of giving this 3 divergent paths where 2 of them don't matter.
Right. And the story behind this game is heartbreaking in a weird way. Suikoden 1 and 2, Suikoden 1 subtly, most of the time, Suikoden 2 a little less subtly, were hinting at a particular area of the world that you hadn't seen yet that seemed to be on a mission. And there seemed to be just a couple people who were aware about this mission and were trying to stop it. Suikoden 3 seems to have confirmed those things with some really important... I just realized I said there were 4 storylines. There's not. I just remember there's 5. Luke is one as well, but you have to unlock that one eventually. The story should be Luke's story in this game. It's extremely important what's going on with Luke, who has been in 1 and 2. And again, it's about this thing that's going on that a couple people out there are aware of and are putting their fingers in the pie, trying to make something happen. And you find out what one of those sides is trying to do. And Luke is a part of it, as he's being used as part of it. And that's great. But it's a side story it's the least fun chapters to play. And they end up abandoning that part of the story anyway. And it just never comes back. You never hear from it again in the rest of the series.
That's what's that name? Empire.
Oh boy. Holy Harmonia Kingdom.
That's it. Holy Harmonia Kingdom.
Yeah, it's all about that. It's the game story in the long run is about Holy Harmonia Kingdom trying to unfairly monopolize the true runes.
Right.
And a specific true rune holder who seems to know exactly how to stop it. And she's in every game she's one of the people in every game for a reason. And I remember telling you, man, I cannot wait till we finally get to the game where we take on Holy Harmonia Kingdom.
Never happened.
Never happens. So Suikoden 3, I will add one more thing. And I don't know if you have any more thoughts about this one. It was always a delight to have your normal random encounters in 1 and 2. And then every now and then you get rewarded with a war battle and a duel.
Right.
I don't remember if there were duels in this one or not. I think there were, and I think they were fine. The war battles are nothing really other than here's a bunch of random encounters where they literally take your control away.
I see. That's the thing. Like I don't remember anything because after you told me about Hugo, I was just like, nope.
Right.
Forget it.
Right.
Forget it.
So yeah, so that was Suikoden 3. Then there's Suikoden 4. Also PlayStation 2. The rest of these are actually PlayStation 2 era games. Suikoden 4 is the straw that broke the camel's back.
Suikoden 4 looked... I didn't play it.
Okay.
Did not play it. Because I'll tell you why. I took one look at it and went, this looks like garbage.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like somebody made a Suikoden game in RPG Maker.
Right.
And it looked like trash. Your main character looked like trash. And from the story beats I read, he's almost insufferable. Right. And I was like, you know what? You guys went from the lead character in 1, and then you went for the kid in the second one who was affectionately named Chubbers. Because you can rename your lead character.
Uh-huh.
You went from that story to that garbage in 3, and then just read some synopsis on the story in 4, and it's like, I do not need to play this game. Because it didn't have like ship battles.
Yeah, well, so that's the funny part. That part I loved about the game. I will go ahead and say, and this is probably a really unpopular opinion for Suikoden fans, I believe the war battles, which were naval battles, was the best overall of the war battles in the series. In that you had control, there was a logic to it, and you had to understand it and actually think your way through, and it fit the universe completely. I found it not so much that it was great in and of itself, as instead it was mostly without flaws. The characters are terrible in this game.
I didn't know that this was a prequel.
Yes, this is the first in all of the game's lineage. Going back, it says right there, I didn't even see it, 150 years before the first game. The characters in here are awful. You know, as soon as you meet them, everything about them because of their archetypes. There are no surprises. There is no depth. The ship as your castle was a cool idea, but the way you had to travel the world was awful. And it was one of those things that they should have known better. In Suikoden 1 and 2, you end up recruiting somebody who will stay at your castle who can zap you anywhere you need to go. And then you quickly get a mirror that can bring you right back to that room. Suikoden 1, you get that fast. Suikoden 2, you got to work a bit till you get there, but it's time well spent. Suikoden 3 takes forever to get to it. Suikoden 4 also takes forever to get to it, and you are literally piloting a boat in an ocean with nothing to look at. And you constantly have to stop moving so you can bring up the map and roughly adjust where you're going. Even then, because it's a boat and because realism all of a sudden is important, you have to actually line yourself up with the dock in order to get to that town. And what if you're traveling on the wrong side? Oh, now you got to slowly go around this island until you get to the right side of it.
That's ridiculous.
It is. It's so much time wasted doing nothing. The story completely falls apart. I feel like it has no connection to the rest of the game. And in the end, it's about a tree that is a weapon. And if that sounds stupid to you, it is. It's just bad. There are positives to take away other than the naval battles. I think the mini games in it were pretty good. They had their own Suikoden rune version base of Mahjong that was great. I loved it. But there was so much to hate about this game. And there were things they don't tell you, and you have to hope you catch it. Like, oh, the more often I cast this, or the more often I do this buddy attack, the better we get at the buddy attack. They never tell you that I can remember. It was just a flop. And as far as I've seen with the Suikoden community, nobody likes this. So we can move on from that one very quickly. Then we get to Suikoden Tactics. It's the only spin-off that we're talking about here. I dipped my toe in this. This is an SRPG in the likes of Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics. It seems like the combat system is pretty cool. Something that fits the Suikoden rune system. The story, however, is literally based on the tree stuff, and it's a zombie story, which just it has nothing to do to capture my attention with.
A zombie story?
Yeah. I can tell you right now, I hate the fact that I've set myself up to have to beat this game for Tropacetic. Like, that's what I think of when I think of Suikoden Tactics. I think, oh God, I have to play this game again.
That's fantastic.
So we can quickly move on from that to Suikoden 5. I really like Suikoden 5. And Rob, I remember calling you and telling you about that.
Right.
When I played this game, I remember sitting down and just thinking to myself, I'll give it 15 minutes. I started playing it, and if you read anybody's opinion on there, they will tell you, boy, this game starts slow. And it's true. It's a lot of walking and talking to various people. But I started to notice while I was doing that, there was a lot of work being done to set up a political story, political in the sense of the Suikoden universe of politics.
Right.
And it started intriguing me a bit. And as I kept playing the game, I felt like I was getting secret coded messages from the developers. And the messages were, hey, thank you so much for playing this. We know Konami screwed this up, but look, we know people liked 1 and 2. We can sneak things from 1 and 2 in here. Just trust us. And it kept making me play it more and more. And the first time I played it, I beat it. And I had a great time with it. But nobody I know of has played this game because it came after 3, 4, and Tactics. And they had abandoned the series by that point.
Right.
So if there's anybody who feels mostly like Rob and I do, where you played 3 or 4 or Tactics and you felt like it just got lost, give 5 a try. You'll probably honestly have to emulate it. I mean, I know when I got my copy, it was in a random bargain bin years ago. But it's actually, surprisingly, it's worth it. And I will tell you, when Suikoden 1 and 2 got announced, one of the thoughts that I had was, it's a shame it doesn't include 5. So, and if you want to know, like, it's not as good as 1 or 2, but it's the third in line. It's like close enough, you know?
Right.
So I feel like it's a real shame. And it is surprising. I remember looking up, were there people from the first 2 games working on this one? And that's why it worked out. But it turns out that wasn't the case. So it just seems like Konami let go and gave developers who were fans or had the mindset to understand the first 2 games to do their stuff, you know? So that was a lot of talking all to get us to the real point of this, which is with Suikoden 1 and 2, a month away for us in the real world, but about a week and a half from when this will go out. What are we hoping that Suikoden 1 and 2 Remaster are going to have? So, Rob, did you want me to start with one, or how did you want to do that?
Well, I'll start by saying, because I don't know if you remember, but a couple years ago, we both kind of flipped out because they released this like little teaser of what the rune magic would look like.
Yep, that's one of mine.
And it was like, oh hell yeah! If the sprites look insanely good, and that rune magic is just like HD and redone, like they have to go in and they look like they completely redid it.
Okay,
like put in the same, because that's the same thing you and I saw, the little snippet of rune magic,
right?
And it was like, no, they went in and they did the same thing, but they just made it new and good and looks fantastic.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I'm going to be curious about. People who didn't play the second game on the PlayStation 1, there's actually a weird situation with that magic. It is extremely beautiful and effective, but what's funny is a part of the reason why it was so effective was because the PlayStation 1 couldn't handle it. Those spells literally had to slow down the system in order for the art to be displayed. And it really enhanced it. Even when I replayed it recently, you know, the first time I played this, it was on a CRT monitor.
Right.
And then the second time I played, it's on a flat screen that's high def, you know.
Right.
And in both cases, in a well-lit room, when I'm casting a Bright Shield Rune magic spell, a couple of them, I have to wince because they're so bright when they hit my eyes.
Right.
And it's just extremely effective. So, yeah, I'm very curious to see how they handled the fact that we shouldn't really be dealing with slowdown anymore.
Right.
You know, so I wonder how they're going to handle that speed. So, okay, I'll do one. This is a huge one. I hope they fix the translation.
Right.
One of the things that was really rough about Suikoden 1 and 2 is it was translated extremely poorly. A lot of nonsensical grammatical issues, spelling issues. It even got to the point where sometimes you would have the character portrait show up that wasn't the right character. It's not
Right.
who was speaking, you know?
Right.
I hope they went through and fixed that.
Right. Right.
Do you have another one?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Fix the cooking game bug.
Yep, that was my very next one. Yep, go for it.
Because I'm sorry, Brian, but that is one of the most fun parts of 2.
Yes,
is the recipes and the cooking and all the like. Well, Victor doesn't like spicy food. Blah 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 blah.
Yes,
but was it the second to last or was it the last recipe?
Oh, well, okay, so let me go through and explain it because I weirdly know this to an insane degree. Here's what people have to know. There's an Iron Chef cooking game in this game as a mini game. Once you get... Oh, I don't remember the cook's name. His name has completely fallen out of my head. One of the characters you get in Suikoden 2 is a chef. He opens up a restaurant, and you use his restaurant in an interesting way. For one, it makes you money. For two, you can actually create your own items, kind of, and use it as a store. However, every now and then when that's
his name was Hayo.
Hayo, that's it, yes. Every now and then when you walk in there, something weird is going on, and it leads to an Iron Chef cooking game.
Not only an Iron Chef cooking game, you make the dishes,
Right.
but it's not just an Iron Chef like you make the dishes cooking game.
Right.
People you can take into battle,
Yes,
are the ones that are your judges,
right?
And like I was saying, Victor doesn't like spicy food, and blah 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 blah.
Right.
So you have to tailor your food to try and impress all of these. It was 3 or 4. I think it was 3.
I thought it was 4.
I thought it was 3
You might be right.
because I could have sworn it was just 3. Anyway, what you have to do is you have to make food. No, it is 4. It is 4. You have to make food that can appease all of these people.
Right. You're catering to them.
But you have to be wary because like some of them are fine, but like one of them might not like one little thing, and then that would ruin your perfect score.
Right.
So I didn't want him to think it was just like an Iron Chef, like, oh, hey, you're making this to use it yourself.
Yeah, totally.
No, you're
fair.
making this for people that you have recruited.
Right, right.
Which is the best part.
Right. Because then you get their commentary and so on about them, you know. So your choices are based on about 100 recipes. I think it might actually be 100 recipes that you get in various ways. You start with some by default. You find some in treasure chests. Sometimes you have people give them to you, and then other times they are a drop from random encounters. However, in Suikoden 2, there's a recipe counting bug where the list of recipes you have are numbered 1 through 100, but the check to see if this monster is going to drop a recipe you don't have has incorrectly been numbered 0 through 99. So if you have dutifully gotten all the recipes up to a point about a third of the way through the game, there suddenly is a stop of these recipes dropping because of the misnumbering, and you suddenly can't get all of them. Super fans of the series have found two ways to get around it. I've heard there is a Game Shark code you can input that fixes it. I've never tried that. And the other way is to play it very extremely weirdly, which is where you are going out of your way to avoid getting recipes until a certain point. And it prevents you not only just from getting all the recipes, but one that's really kind of important for fans of the game based on some characters. And you really want that recipe because it ties into the humor and the characters of the game. So yeah, that was actually the first one I typed down was I need that fixed. Although I will say, because this is going to have a PC release, even if they don't fix it, I am positive the modding community is going to be on it like that.
Right. I'm sure that most of it's already done.
Yes. Right. All right. So, okay, this is one for me because I'm impatient. They didn't have, in a lot of RPGs that use text boxes, you have a setting for how fast does text appear. You see, Rob knows exactly where I'm going. Yeah. Some games use an instant speed where it's just boom, it's right there for you to read immediately. Suikoden didn't have that. So for impatient people, you're clicking the button to make it all appear right away. There is no warning coming when you're going to have a pop-up box to make a decision, and you can very easily make a bad decision regarding that because you're just trying to get to the next text.
Right.
So I hope they fix that. Do you have another one?
Yeah. Fix the tedium on some of the things, like Pon from the first game. Getting him to survive.
Yeah.
Fix that. And the running away a whole bunch of times for Stallion. Like just fix the tedium, because the thing is, like, because I had I didn't have a Game Shark or anything. I had that one that plugs into the back of the console. Mm-hmm. That was technically a mod chip too. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things you told me was, okay, normally I wouldn't have you do this, but you need to put this in to your Game Shark thing to give you increased money.
Yeah.
At this one specific point, that way you can upgrade Pon's thing all the way.
Yep.
So he can actually give him the best armor at the best armor you can get, and then you get his weapon all the way up. And then you can beat the guy's dad.
Yep.
If you don't, you'll never get the best possible ending.
Nope.
And it's just like, okay, I can, but if you hadn't given me that and said something, I would have never have known. But that just seems wholly unnecessary.
You know, I didn't have that one, and I actually want to expand upon it because I think that's a really good one, Rob.
By the way, the money's name was Potch.
Yeah, that's right. It was Potch. It better still be Potch.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's funny. It is Potch. There are other examples of that I'm totally with you. I would love somehow for that to be addressed, tuned down a certain way. You had mentioned the game of Chicharorin earlier.
Yeah.
I think when you are playing that game to get them in 1 and 2, I think there is an outcome based on your luck stat. I've never seen anybody look into this or not, but I swear there have been times when I'm playing it fast that I cannot win. But if I go level up a bit and come back, I can win. It's very anecdotal, but it's not explained if that's the case. And you can just waste all of your money because you can't win for something like that. My biggest hate, though, that I would love if there's a way to just code in there, if they fail 5 times, let them succeed the 6th time, is, if you recall, Suikoden 1, LaPonte's Mansion. You've got a couple little puzzles to do, very barely even puzzles, and then you've got that Wheel of Misfortune.
Yes.
I hate that. I've been stuck on that thing for so long in some of my playthroughs. Just be like, okay, this idiot failed 7 times.
Yeah.
Let him go.
Yep. Mine was that Taiho and Yamku, that Chicharrones. Because I remember doing that, and that's how you recruit them. You beat them in that game.
Yes. And not just them. You have to do it for Camille. Camille, you needed the money. It was that Sergey guy, maybe? The dude with the eye patch.
I think so.
Okay.
I have to look. But you were right. I lost so much money on that just doing that because I'm like, I need these guys.
Yes.
Don't you need them for their boat?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great point. They're necessary to the story to proceed.
So it's like, okay, well, all right, well, I'm broke now, so now I have to go fight a whole bunch of rabbits, come back and try and do this again.
The fluff balls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was talking about the axe rabbits.
Oh, I forgot about the axe rabbits.
Yeah, the axe rabbits.
All right. That's a great one, Rob. I really like that. Okay, if this is being released as one title, I would like to be able to correctly name the first character Tyr, T-I-R.
Stu.
Or Stu for Rob. Not M-Tyr, in order for it to be Tyr in Suikoden 2.
So, the one thing about that was, what was cool was if you named him whatever in the first game, then in the second game, when they try and remember his name, they take the first letter from his first name.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, for me, I named him Stu. And so they're like, oh, it's like Sick Dole or something like
it was
that.
Sick Dole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in order to get him to be called, and this is just the thing that if you're really into RPGs, that you just learn to make up an excuse for why it had to be capital M, capital T, lowercase I, lowercase r. So in Suikoden 2, he is called Tyr. But in the first game, that means he's M-Tyr. And the way I just kept thinking to myself, he's a rich kid. He's got his servants following him. They call him Master. So it's just Master Tyr. That's just shorthand for it. Just to make it make sense.
Right.
I can't do it again. I need it fixed.
So the other one that the one that they have to make it available. They have to put it in there for something.
Okay.
I just want to know how they're going to handle, like, you play the first one and then you roll right into the second one and it's there. Because they made a 1 and 2, it said, for the PSP. That's what that said
really?
before. Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, go back to what you specifically searched 1 and 2.
Yeah. I think I can do it this way. Oh, no, you're right. I did. I went to a page.
Right there. You passed it. Right there. 2006 for the PSP.
Oh, interesting. So Japan had something like this already.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's what's being remastered.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. You were saying, how do we roll into the second part?
Yeah.
That is a good question.
Yeah. Because see, this high definition localization version of the compilation. So it's a version of the thing that they had in Japan.
You know what? I'm going to make a guess how they do it. In Suikoden 1, as it was released with all 108 stars, that game ends with Tyr and Gremia walking off. However, if you remember, speaking of tropes, they have the load-bearing boss situation after the final fight against the dragon form of the Emperor.
Right.
And if you remember, Flick and Victor each stop to help your escape, and then you see them fight, what looks like they're just going to fight till their death to protect you. They obviously survive. They're in the next game. I wonder if they have you follow their escape.
That would be cool.
Right?
That would be really cool.
And not only would it be cool, it would be perfectly thematic because those two became best friends over the course of that game. And what's the next game? It's about best friends, Bright Shield and Dark Sword.
Right.
So my fingers are crossed they went with something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So I've only got two more.
Okay.
I'll save the short and simple one for last. So I have here War Math. I'm hoping that there's some better explanation about the war battles math. I remember always being frustrated, especially in Suikoden 2, not quite seeing the dice roll that was going on or how that dice roll compared to everything else making up your units to determine a good strategy to take to win those wars. It's a strange thing because I don't remember ever losing any of those, but never did I feel like I won them.
Right.
You know? So I'm hoping that is, I'm not asking them to be changed. I'm just hoping that either they or somebody can explain it so I can go in there and be like, okay, I know what I'm doing.
To make it a little more like closer to the Fire Emblem type rock, paper, scissors, I guess, would be a little bit easier.
Right. And then the last thing I've got, the short one, is going to be a weird one. This wish list, we've given you our wish list where these are the things we would like. This one is me asking for them to not do something. I do not want them to change the music.
Agreed.
I'd be fine if it's just a less compressed version.
Yeah.
But the music in Suikoden, for anybody who's RPG music fans, Suikoden 1 and 2 is very unique to itself. And I remember, man, the first time I played Suikoden 2, I was thinking like, I'm going to have to turn this down. I don't like this. But then it just latches onto me.
Right.
And every May, it's on my May playlist.
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah.
So there's that too. So I'm excited about this finally getting some love.
Yes.
Here's what I don't think I'm going to do, Rob, and I'm curious about how you stand on this. I'm not sure, despite my love and excitement for this, I don't know if I'm going to be a day one purchaser. I think Konami has really I don't trust Konami anymore.
Right.
Back when these games came out originally, I could have some faith in them. They've made some crazy, awful decisions in the years since then. And so I want to see that this game works, you know?
So the biggest thing about this is the only reason why I disagree is because this was already made.
Yeah, you know, I didn't have that in my head when I had that feeling. So
yeah, this was already made. This is just an English localization of the thing that was already made. Because if you right there, like 19 years ago,
right? Wow,
this was put out.
Yeah, this the original combination he's talking about.
Yeah, 19 years ago on the PSP.
Yeah.
So my thing is, because this was 19 years ago on the PSP, what are they going to do with it? Because it goes from the PSP to PlayStation 4, 5, PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series S, Series X, Nintendo Switch. I mean, I really hope it looks good.
Right.
But see, the bad thing is like look a little, scroll a little further down. Suikoden 1 and 2, no, you missed it. Right there. Sold under 22,000 copies in Japan.
Yeah, that's interesting. Unfortunately, that piece there's just not much to this article, so we don't know why. They don't say, oh no, it does say
low on the critical reception.
So apparently the critical reception was good, and so they were surprised that it sold this few. Now, interesting. That gives me a lot of questions. I'm curious as to, was this I'm trying to think of how to word this. Was this a result of it being the PSP? You know, because that was not an extremely well regarded system, even though it's funny because I didn't have one at the time, but now that I've played some things on it, I like it perfectly fine.
Right.
You know? So yeah, that's interesting. We'll see what they do. And the thing is, we can't say, oh, it's taken them 2 years to work on this, because let's be honest, we know what Konami's been putting its resources in. It's Metal Gear Delta, which is the Snake Eater remake.
Right.
You know, so of course this would be on the back burner compared to that. So that is interesting. I'm actually on rpgamer.com, which, God, I forgot about this website. This is from so long ago. I'm curious if I can find, or maybe I should go to Metacritic. Oh boy, this, whatever duct tape is holding this website together is falling off.
So I pulled up, actually, here, I pulled up something for you here.
Okay.
That's, the top is the original, the bottom is the 1 and 2. It looks like it's relatively the same, but the backgrounds and everything are smooth.
Yeah, smoother. There's more depth to it, it looks like.
Yeah, the colors kind of match up. There's less jagged edges around everything.
Right.
But the only thing that I wonder is, how smooth is it going to be?
Right.
Is it going to be annoyingly smoothed? Or is it going to be just enough?
Yeah, they could screw this up, you know. Like,
well, but that's the thing. Like, did they?
Right.
Did they screw it up?
I get.
Okay, here. Here's from 2.
Okay, let's take a look here. Is the top the original?
Yeah.
Ooh, those colors seem too bright, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
That I don't like. It's not meant to be a bright game.
No, because like there's details in the rocks, the grass, the trees. Like, it looks like a lot of the background stuff is redone. The colors on the characters look nice.
Yeah,
Like, Nanami's colors look really nice, but it just looks like it's a super bright game.
Right. I'm laughing. What website am I on? I'm on NeoGAF.
Oh, jeez.
And there's people in 2012 talking about how the PSP release is probably going to happen soon to the West. So that does not happen. Spoiler alert.
So here's another one. The top is the original. The bottom is the PSP.
Yeah, you can tell that forest is actually on fire this time.
Yeah.
See, that looks really good to me.
Yeah.
So I feel like now I'm feeling safer about Suikoden 1. I'm worried they're going to brighten up Suikoden 2.
Yeah.
And that is a dark game for a reason.
Yeah.
So a lot of shrugs, a lot of nervousness coming out of us, you know. So
I mean, because it's a beloved series, and for me, who's not really an RPG kind of person,
right,
to have fallen in love with these. Here's another one for 2.
I remember this scene from a distance. I knew exactly what scene this was. That looks good. That I think I'm okay with that.
So maybe that one was just a little situational, like, because it was the sun,
Yeah,
not necessarily the color scheme.
Right, that could be it.
But I mean, it's just this is such a beloved series, and it has its fans, and it has its diehard fans, and like we don't want to see anything. We don't want to see anything happen because this game holds such a special place for a lot of people. Suikoden 2 especially holds sway with a lot of people.
Right, yes. So I've gone to Silicon Era, who wrote about this, and they have this. Let me read this for everybody. This is Silicon Era reporting back in early October of 2024 about the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remaster being based on the PSP collection. And here is a part of what they write. They say, when asked about previous re-releases of the first two Suikoden titles, it was said that the source code and data used in the remaster are based on the PSP version, which now we know. I didn't. Rob knew this. However, due to some issues present in the original release of 1 and 2 on PSP, the developers made a lot of changes. Oguchi is a name I'm not familiar with, but Sakayama, I believe, is one of the original people on that game. They offered some examples of fixes and changes made to the PSP version. For example, in a particular cutscene involving character Luca Blight, who is actually one of my favorite all-time baddies.
Right.
A character that should have been invisible could be seen on the side of the screen. Another one includes being unable to complete a recipe. Woo! High five, Rob. All right, that's been asked and answered.
All right, cross that off the list. I bumped the mic.
Oh, and look, it says focus on polishing some details, such as fixing typos. All right, this is working out well now. I'm excited again. So, okay, but it sounds like they did have to make a lot of changes based on issues with the PSP version. So,
right.
So I guess I'm expecting to wait and see. I want to see the Steam reviews. And not to be like, I don't want to see people say, "Oh, I love this game." I want to see them say, "Oh, it runs so smooth." They fixed a lot of the things that were a problem from before.
Right.
That kind of thing. Although I will say, you know what, Rob, we're literally talking about an embarrassment of riches here, because I have the physical copies still.
Right.
And we're talking about games from the PS1, which can easily be emulated
right.
if you don't have those anymore. So
right.
they can't take it away from us.
Right. But this is something that they're going through, and it was based on the PSP compilation, but they're going through and they're retouching it. They're fixing things that were broken in the PSP one, apparently.
Yes, right.
And then putting it back out to the world. And hopefully with putting this back out, it gets more and more and more and more appreciation.
Yes. So now, Rob, we've been talking about this for a while, but I think I've got one more thing, and I'm dropping this on you.
Okay.
I didn't give you advance warning, not because I'm trying to get you in a gotcha moment. It's because I didn't think about it until we started doing this. Suikoden 1 and 2 is getting a remaster and a re-release.
Uh-huh.
Is there another RPG specific, whether it's just one single game or a short series, let's say, that you wish could be tackled next? Not
it already happened
by Konami, but okay. Oh, well, I know which one you're about to say.
Already happened.
Yeah, go ahead and
Super
say it.
Mario RPG.
Okay, so they've done it. So I'm asking, are there any out there that hasn't happened? Hasn't even been announced?
That haven't been announced?
Yeah,
you know exactly which one.
Okay.
Skies of Arcadia.
Okay, I was thinking that. I wasn't sure if you were going to say it.
Skies of Arcadia.
That's a good call.
So, but with Sega doing Sega right now, it blowing it up and just to the moon everything.
Yeah.
That's
a possibility.
That's because they just renewed the copyrights and stuff for it.
Oh, did they?
They just renewed them this past week.
Okay. All right.
Well, it would be weeks ago for when this goes up, but they renewed them.
Right.
So give me another Skies of Arcadia, or at least just re-release the first one, see how it goes, and then go from there. I mean, look at what happened look at how much Yakuza blew up.
Yes, right.
And everybody's loving Sega RPGs because of 8 and then Infinite Wealth.
Yes, right.
Being just pure RPGs.
Right.
But Skies of Arcadia, hands down.
Okay.
Or Secret of Evermore.
Nice. Sure. That's actually kind of interesting, because it feels like that would have happened already, and I'm surprised it hasn't.
Yeah, there's a shitload of mana stuff.
Right.
But no Secret of Evermore.
Weird. I wonder why that is.
Because nobody knows what that is.
I guess. Yeah.
It's true. Everybody's like Final Fantasy and everything like that. But
Right.
Secret of Evermore, like, what the hell is that game? Like, oh, you're in the future and you get a dog. It's pretty rad.
Well, then I guess I'll close it out with mine. Sprite graphics age very well. Even on HD televisions, I'm perfectly comfortable looking at them.
Right.
And the game I have in mind it's 2 games, and they are sprite graphics, so it shouldn't be a problem. However, the reason why you need it done is because there's one particularly ugly aspect of playing that game, or those 2 games, on a modern monitor. So the games are Lunar 1 and 2.
Exactly. Yep.
And specifically, I want the
really hard game.
re-release one. Yeah, well, we can talk about that another time. But so, Working Designs is now defunct. They released the games originally on Sega Saturn. No. Yeah, or no, Sega CD. They originally came out on Sega CD. There was a falling out between them and Sega, and they made remastered versions for the PlayStation 1. We're talking Lunar Silver Star Story complete and Lunar Eternal Blue complete. The remasters were amazing. And they were also, those remasters are also part of the reason why Working Designs doesn't exist anymore. They charge normal price for something that should have been double the price because of all the things they threw in for extras. And that was kind of how they did their business. But the sprites look great, except they relied on anime cutscenes that are so heavily compressed. They're so awful to look at on a modern monitor. So that's all I want. Or like at this point, is because Working Designs is unreleased, I've changed my mind. I'm okay with our AI future as long as somebody AI upscales that.
Yeah, and makes it so it doesn't look like a QuickTime or Real Play video.
Right, exactly. So, Rob, this was really fun to do.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I hope some other Suikoden fans heard this and are screaming their thoughts at us too. Go ahead and leave a comment or something. You know, we'll read them and respond.
What is it? Joy.
For the email?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Hang on, I can pull it up.
I'm the one who made it, but I don't know.
Can I pull it up? Do we have emails?
Is it Joy Boy Show? It's not. Hang on, I can pull it up.
Here we go. joyboysinbox@gmail.com.
Yeah, so I wasn't even close.
No. Do we have any emails in it?
Not right now, not lately.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, joyboysinbox@gmail.com. Send us an email. Tell us what you guys would like to see remade, especially RPG wise.
Yeah, I actually would be very curious because, like you said, Secret of Evermore is something people don't think of. Nobody thinks of Lunar anymore, and I'm curious, what are we not thinking of? Like, there's got to be stuff where when I see it, I'd be like, oh, of course.
Yeah,
like
Contact from the GBA.
Right. Nobody's saying that one.
No, nobody knows what that game is, but it's ridiculous.
I own them now for way too much money because of frickin' Rob. He made me put it on my trope aesthetic list. It's unreal. And the thing is, it's going to be a guarantee land because there were only 2 of them, which puts them in the miscellaneous pile, which is the biggest pile.
Yep.
So it's going to happen, and I'm going to be very angry.
Yep. It is. Contact is a weird ass game.
So anyway, thank you guys for listening, hanging out. We will see you on some other episode of something. Bye.
Bye.